context. You all work with client data all the time. Our analysis says that accountants spend about 30 to 35% of their time sorting out client data, and lawyers spend 20 to 25% of their time. It'd be interesting to know if that's your experience, sorting out client data before it's usable for you to use, right? You're piling around in team rooms, you're asking your client for the latest contract on a lease, etc. So how can we solve that problem? And that's the problem which NGB was born to solve, and is doing so using all kinds of WYSI techniques. And as I say, we built something called a common data model, right? So if you want to share data between law firms, or between the law firm and a bank, or a law firm and a client, wouldn't it be great if everybody knew what standard the data was going to come in, and it was easy for you to manage, review, and manipulate? So we're trying to define that first, and we've made some huge progress on doing that with the firms, etc. And we've also started to play with some technology and put technology in which allows firms to find and connect data. Now, if you use Google, or if you have had a previous career in MI6, then you would have found something called knowledge graphs, which connect data up across lots of different sources, so you can start making assumptions and trying to find true data. And so we've started building knowledge graphs for legal, tax, and audit. And in fact, one of the very first ones we built is a property knowledge graph. If you take the common data model, which we've defined, and you put knowledge graphs on top, how does that help a law firm? Well, at the moment, you probably, if you want to start looking at leases of your client, and your client's going, look, can you go through all my leases? I'm about to reduce down the amount of property I need in the UK because of post-COVID working from home type mentality. Then you'll go to them and go, okay, well, give me all your leases. And they'll probably give you 200 or 300 leases for about 10 properties. So how do you know which one's the right lease? And how do you know where to find them? And in fact, it'll probably take your client several years and 2 or 3 careers to find all the right leases. So the first thing we're trying to do is solve that problem, right? Can we find all the leases or the contracts in the client environment, work out which one's the most recent one by cross-matching between the finance systems in terms of what's the actual rent paid and what's the rent in the lease, for example, and going, okay, that's the right lease for this document. Secondly, we want to be able to allow you to ask more complicated questions, right? So you might want to go, I want to look at all my client leases. Let's just say the client sends you all their leases. I want to look at all the client leases, and I want to look for leases which have termination clauses less than 6 months, because you probably want to focus on those first. So you can do that. But let's make it even more complicated, right? And go, actually, let me look for all leases where there is a supplier called Arconic, which is unfortunately the supplier to the Grenfell cladding. So I would look for all properties which my client has, which has a lease of more than 3 years, and has Arconic as a supplier. And you could make that request to a knowledge graph and to a common data model set, and you get all the leases back. So you get, so by having common data models and having knowledge graphs, which are widely used by people like Google and MI6, you can start making complex queries to find the right pieces, so that actually your staff can be focused on actually bringing what you define as professionalism, which is absolutely right, which is all about the kind of ethical view, the knowledge, etc. And it shouldn't be about trying to work your way through data. So why am I here today? Because actually we're doing an open source project on the data model. So it's going to be available to everybody and anybody to use. And we're working heavily with Microsoft and their engineering team on a global basis. As I said, we're working with a load of accounting firms around the world. And we're working with 6 law firms. But we need more people to be involved to help us finish off the knowledge graphs around property. The data model's already been done, but we're building the knowledge graphs for property with Birmingham Law School, with Imperial, with 6 law firms. We need more. And we're going to start working on supply chain. And then we're going to make that all available to all of you to use to make yourselves far more efficient than you are today. And that way you can focus on what is truly professionalism rather than data management.